when you get everybody in your business understanding what the vision of the company is and all kind of rowing in the same direction and how you're going to get to this vision, you create that traction where they're showing up every day, they're accountable, they're disciplined, they know their role. And then you create this healthy leadership team.
Melanie Johnson here. Thanks for joining us for another great podcast. All right, if you don't know what EOS stands for, you're going to get an education today of what EOS is. And I've asked a few people just on the street before I don't know what the heck you're talking about. And those were business owners. So now I'm really glad to welcome Erik Dodier. He is going to explain this. He has owned a lot of companies he may get into a little bit, but now he's just focusing on EOS. So these little tactics that he's going to teach us today are really going to help you not just with business, but your kind of everyday life. And I can't wait to dive in and just have him give me advice for this whole thing. I'm going to be taking notes through the whole thing. Erik, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you. And EOS, which stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System, is one of my favorite topics to talk about. So thank you for having me on.
So what is that? I want you to tell us how you got started in this, how you used it for your former business, and really, what does EOS really mean? I mean, people know operating systems, but what are entrepreneurial ops?
Right. Yeah. Well, so my background, I'm up in the East. I grew up in Dover, New Hampshire, so I grew up in a big city or anything, but started us back in the mid-90s building websites, kind of very humble beginnings, me and a partner. We just kept pivoting the business for 15, 20 years until we kind of found our way into building e-commerce. So in 2010, 12 e-commerce sites. And we started building around Salesforce and the technologies. So a lot of journeys and steps to get there. But ultimately, we ran into a friend that I had known was helping companies implement EOS. So I called him to ask him about it. And when he came up and explained it to me, it just felt like some sense model to kind of layer into your business. So it's not software. It's just a set of very simple practice to manage your business. And we adopted it. And just to give you a sense, when we adopted EOS, we were 75 people and about 15 million in revenue, 15. When we sold the business 5 years later, while running EOS, we were 500 people, 75 million. So I like to say, you can't say it's all EOS, but we were in the right space and technology, but that's helped us get so clear on what we were trying to do and get everybody going in the right direction. And we built this very healthy team. It just became an amazing platform for us to build our business on.
So as EOS, you said it's not software, it's not SaaS. Is it practices and disciplines that you have to do every day? Is it like, okay, you have to make so many sales? Is it like KPI, so many sales calls every day, so many leadership meetings? What does it entail?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, we use a concept, we talk about what we call VTH, get vision, traction, healthy, right? When you get everybody in your business understanding what the vision of the company is and all kind of rowing in the same direction and how you're going to get to this vision, you create that traction where they're showing up every day, they're accountable, they're disciplined, they know their role. And then you create this healthy leadership team. If you do those three things right, which is what EOS of EOS, a magical thing started. Honestly, we lived that because as entrepreneurs, business are kind of like chaos, right? You're running around, you're wearing different hats, you're doing different things. You really haven't defined the roles. I always felt like I was very clear on my vision, but in reality, I barely told people what the heck we were going because I barely knew, right? I hadn't written it down. We were kind of improvising as we went. So what EOS does is helps entrepreneurs, usually businesses from 10 to 250 people, a couple of million and that's so still very kind of somewhat smaller to medium-sized businesses, just helps them get organized. And my God, I felt like I was a better CEO when we implemented it. It was probably the one decision I made that all my employees ultimately loved. Like I never made a decision that they all loved. Always some hated it, some loved it. But EOS, they always said, Erik, when we started implementing EOS, it felt like we took the business seriously. And I look back and it was just amazing, which is ultimately why I became an EOS implementer once I sold the business, because it was such an impact on me and the business. I thought this is a way for me to give back to other businesses. And so now I work with other small businesses up here in the Northeast, roll out EOS.
I love that. That's a way for you to give back. Let's kind of break down some of this stuff. So like the first thing you said was vision. So if you're working with a company, what kind of questions do you ask to help them to get to their vision? Because they can be all over, like, in our business, we want to serve, 1 million authors, but it's got to be more than that, I imagine. Like, how do they dial in?
Great question. And and the reality is every company has a vision. It's just a matter of one, all the leaders don't probably all agree or haven't really talked about it openly, probably haven't written it down, but there's something there that's driving them forward. What I loved about EOS is it had there are actually 8 questions to take you through. So 8 questions, your core values, what is your core focus, what is your 10-year target, what is your marketing strategy, your 3-year plan, 1-year picture, 3-year picture, 1-year plan. What are your quarterly goals? What are your quarterly rocks? And then what are your issues? There's both the big, audacious goal, so to speak, they call it, but there's also the practical, how you're going to get there. You've kind of broken down your 10-year plan into, all right, if we're here in 10 years, we have to be here, where are we going to be in 3? If we're going to be here in 3, we're going to be here in 1. If we're going to be here in 1 year, what are we going to do in the next 90 days to make the most progress towards that? So I love the idea of the big picture, but I'm also a doer. And I love the practicality of breaking it down and working backwards towards, all right, what are we going to get done in the next 3 months, working towards that goal? So it was a very practical way to create that vision, because you're right. Everybody calls it sort of, has a different definition of what a vision might be.
Yeah, and it's kind of ethereal. It's like one sentence big, blah, blah, blah. But then you're saying it's more than just coming up with what the vision is. Then you're breaking it down into these micro levels and getting it all the way down to what are we doing in the next 90 days that contribute to that 10-year plan of getting you there.
Absolutely.
And do you find even it's like making the question of the 90 days, okay, brainstorm, we should do this. We should double up our social media. Well, does that really attribute to the 10-year plan? Is it going to move the needle? Because you can come up with a lot of ideas. Maybe you got to kick some to the curb. Did you find that too?
Yeah, well, that's the other beautiful thing here is when I'm working with clients, I'm working with their leadership team. So that's often, the founder, the president, the people that run the sales, the marketing, the finance, whoever they consider that leadership team to be. And so when we're laying out both the vision, the big picture, and those quarterly 90 days, we're doing together. And the value of that is you can't just have everybody deciding what they think's most important, right? This has to be filtered and debated, really arrive in what important 3 to 7 things we got to get done in the next 90 days. And when you do that and everybody agrees, yep, that is the most important things, what you've done is not only helped hopefully arrive at the best, most important 3 to 7 things, but everybody now bought in and agreed and shook their head. Yeah, these are the 3 to 7 things we got to get done. And then you create that accountability. You're going to meet again in 90 days. That's part of the EOS process. And now people don't want to show up and not have those things done because the most important we got to do. That's what helps build that strong leadership team. And then you keep progressing in those kind of 90-day intervals.
And then is that the same thing as traction? Like you talked about traction. Are those 90-day goals the same as traction, or is it different?
Action is just what we call that cadence of meetings, right? So there's a weekly meeting called the Level 10 meeting. There's quarterly meetings. There's state company meeting. And it's all about cadence of communication, so that communicating way more than we think we need to, right? Because we thought that, everybody knows what we're up to. I told them at one day. In reality, you got to tell them many times, right? We say you got to tell people things 7 times before they really hear it. And we just feel frustrated at the third thing. So it's just a structured approach to communication that stick to no matter what. You're doing great. Let's keep going. You have challenges, get about it. So it becomes comfortable. The employees can know they're hearing the full story, and it's that repetitiveness, right? And when you're adding new employees in a growing business, they might have only heard it for the first time.
Yeah.
Right? The tenured employees have maybe heard it 7 or 8 times, but maybe they hear something different each time because they're at a different point of business from where they are.
I've realized running my own business, communication isn't just putting it on a Notion board, right? It's just not putting it in your project management or your Salesforce. Okay, I put it up there, but if you're not revisiting it, like you say, at team meetings or regular meetings one-on-one, you forget about it. It's like you're on the road and you're like, look for red cars. And then all of a sudden at the end, you're like, how many blue cars did you see? Oh, you didn't tell me the blue car. Oh, I think I put it in there somewhere. I might have mentioned a blue car at one time.
Sure.
So yeah, you've got to really keep that. And then leadership, I remember as a parent, I'm a single parent, and I used to think, I don't need leadership stuff. I'm not listening to that. And this is where I was just a one-man show doing real estate redevelopment. And then I realized, oh my gosh, you need leadership. What are people you're finding that business owners are leadership?
I think that a lot of business owners, if they started their own business or they're entrepreneurs, they're doers, right? They like to go do things. And they think the employees are just naturally going to be naturally do things and always do the important. So I think as your company grows, you now need to leverage by getting everybody else on the team. We talk in EOS terms, right people, right seats. They believe in your core values, and right seats, meaning they're in a role that is absolutely been defined and as necessary and is in the, we call the accountability chart. These are all the seats we have to grow this business. And you've got that exact right person in the right seat. They get the job, they want the job, capacity to do the job. And that's magic. And now, because you trust everybody downstream from you, you start delegating more. You're not trying to hang on to everything on your own. You trust everybody to get their job done, and you expect everyone to get their job done, right? Because that's often the other thing is we say, well, I'll just do this myself because it's easier. And I don't have to teach that person how to do it yet. And we delegate down to take over things from you. So growing a business is just a constant game of delegating down, right? 1 to 2 people, from 2 to 4 to 10. And even your managers need to learn that skill as well, right? The managers eventually, they get overwhelmed. They need to push things down to their team. So EOS is this structure and platform and coach that everybody on the same page and using these skills. I used to say it made me a better CEO. It makes an okay manager a good manager, and a great manager, right? Because now they're working within a system.
And I think those two tie together, that communication as well. Like, it's so key, like you said, having the right person, because all of a sudden you're trying to delegate to them, but the job's not getting done. So you're like, I'll just do it myself. And then you get into that, being on that mouse wheel circle again, the hamster wheel, and you're back doing it all to yourself. And then once you get to the point where you have the right people and you're letting them do this stuff, how do you keep them motivated and keep them growing? Because sometimes if someone gets stagnant, then they want to move on to another company. How do you keep leading them and motivating them and developing that culture?
The great thing here is there is also a process for having one-on-ones with your employees. Not necessarily weekly, sometimes, but making sure you're kind of having these quarterly conversations where you're talking about where they go, what's important to them. And if EOS is doing its job and the business is growing and there's good communication and you're dealing with issues and you're moving towards your vision, there's a very high probable chance that the business is growing, and therefore there's going to be opportunity for these people, right? They like the job. So within the company, having said that, everybody's different. Everybody has their personal ambitions, and sometimes they may start to the company is head, and that's okay. But now you have a very clear structure. If that person moves on, you have a very clear role and a very clear seat and very well-defined core values of what you're looking for. And often much more easier to fill that seat. And I can tell you, when we ran EOS and I would talk to potential employees about joining us, and I told them that this model we ran, I talked about EOS, and I'd share with them the vision. They'd be like, wow, that's amazing. Companies they were at, they didn't have this. They were like, wow, Erik, that's incredible. I can't even believe you can share all that with me. And I'd show them the accountability chart and where they would fit in and what the other roles were. And they thought it was amazing just that we were running an operating system to manage the business.
Let's talk about the accountability chart. Tell me more. What is that? How does it work? And what did you use software to use that? Did you just have your own thing that you did?
Yeah, the economy. So there is out there on the market that can help organize all your content. There's a few different things out there. You'll find a few, and we did use one. It was amazing because in this day and age, everybody's virtual. So they could all log in. They could see the vision. They could see the quarterly goals. They could see the rocks, see the issues lists. And they had one both at their department level. If they're on the leadership team, we could communicate that way and have a virtual leadership team later years. But the accountability chart is like probably the center of everything. In fact, it's one of the very first things we do. When you begin an EOS journey, you start with something called the focus day. The accountability chart is like the second topic that we get to in the morning of the very first day. Because if you don't have the structure right and then get all the right people in the right seats, you're almost, just definition, you're going to hit a ceiling or have some issues because maybe if your sales isn't the right leader over there, maybe you've outgrown the current leadership functions and you need to add more seats to the leadership team. So it's the very first thing we do to try to rethink the accountability chart with the current leadership team, what it needs to look like going forward. Sometimes it doesn't change. They've got mostly the right people. Sometimes it's not uncommon in an EOS journey that someone over 6 or 12 months, a leader might change over because they know what they're responsible for and they're now considered, hey, I own this, right? So people aren't going to step over them, clear lines of communication. It's the center of everything, and it's a pretty much the starting point of all the EOS tools.
I guess you can use like a project management type system for that. There's accountability that they have deadlines of the to do. The thing that was like the icing on the cake for me was they should have on their board, everybody's board at the vision, the 10-year, the 3-year, what they want to do and the goals there, and the job description. Hey, this is what you're responsible for. We've had just recently, hey, who's answering the DMs on social media? I thought it was you. They're like, no, I thought it was somebody else.
Right.
So unless they have that right on their board that says this is exactly what you're supposed to be doing, they don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. And we use the software 90.io. It was built for EOS, built to organize all the content of EOS. It's not meant to replace all your other communication necessarily, but it contains your VTO, your vision, and those 8 questions. It contains your accountability chart. You can run your meetings out. It's really kept on the same page through our EOS process. Yeah.
I love that. So it's different than just project management. This is specific for EOS and accountability, the 90. Other software that you have that you're loving these days? Any?
Oh, geez, of course, I use ChatGPT, and just because it's the one that I dove first and started just dabbling with. And I keep trying to make it I'm doing. It's such a hand tool to keep me sit down and try to organize something. Now I'll just speak it into ChatGPT, hey, organize this, and it spits back these perfect things.
Yeah.
It's just efficiency. And I just think, and I'm probably not even using it to its maximum potential. I'm probably sure I'm not, but I try to use it at least a couple times a day for something, just to keep getting different things. And it's amazing how well it gets to know you. It's almost telling you, it's pulling information from things that different conversations and weaving it together. But between those 2 tools, I love LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn just because you've got this network of people. And in the 90s, when I was starting to build my career, I would have loved to know, hey, how can I get to know this person? I had no idea who they knew. I could connect to them. Where today you can just reach out to mutual connections. I'm a connector. I find myself, those are my tools of choice when I'm playing around on my laptop.
I love that. I came up with a business partner. We were told this in a training that we had, and she's been using it. It's called Whisper Flow. And you can just like on your email or whatever, you can just talk, but it cleans it up. It takes all the ums out. It takes all the stuff and it makes it really succinct. So I downloaded that yesterday. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. That is going to save me time for typing stuff in, because not all AI apps have the voice activation in there either to talk it in. So find that out. I did it on a couple of emails yesterday and I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. I like that. I can just ramble with this and it cleans it up for me.
Yeah.
How do you go from advice, like to a company, you're giving them advice of what they need to do, but how does that transcend in terms?
My role as an EOS implementer now, we often say really consultants, right? I say I'm a facilitator, a teacher, a coach. And in the first few days of EOS, and the first few days, it's three separate days spread out over 60 days. I'm doing a lot of teaching, right? I'm teaching the tools. Here's what it's all forcing things. And then, but you're also coaching, right? Because when you're observing a business and you're observing the leadership team, and by the way, there's all sorts of dynamics, right? There's family, kids, there's also different types of leaders that I've worked with. I can see things that they not see, right? And my job is to challenge them, right? And shine a spotlight, not to necessarily, I don't have the answers, right? I have an HVAC company, I have an insurance company, I have a company that makes large printing equipment, and a creative agency. I don't have all the answers of how they should run their business. So what I'm doing is facilitating the conversations. So it's teacher, facilitator, and coach. So sometimes you're coaching, sometimes I'm facilitating conversations and they're getting to the answers. And then sometimes I'm just teaching them the tools. But they ultimately arrive at what are their most important things to do, because I don't have the answers. I don't know their particular business. I'm there to facilitate the answers from them.
Yeah. That. And it makes them think. I know when I ever do business coaching, just asking the questions or even get coached on business, they're making you answers that you don't normally answer. Who is my ideal customer? But let me think about that they're having to think about those holes, how they're getting their leads and what they're doing and their systems and their vision of all those questions. What are the biggest challenges for?
It's funny. We do conclude and next steps and we have them rate the day and share feedback from the day. And especially in their first few days, their ratings are high, but feedback this is amazing. And often I wonder, because I think it's amazing because they've never really gotten together as a leadership team. I mean, believe it or not, it's rare, right? They do their weekly meetings, they're in the routine, and years could go by and they're just like doing the same thing. And to sit down for a day and turn off their phones and turn off their laptops and not look at email and all talk about their business and all be open and honest about where the challenges are, like, Like at the end of the day, like this was incredible, right? Nobody got upset with each other, all done and transparent, and let's put it out there. They're just like, wow, this is incredible. And
Yeah.
the fact that EOS is what brings, if they just did that anyway, they'd probably be thrilled. The fact that EOS is giving them structure and a set of practical tools, it creates an amazing process for them to do this. And so the challenge probably is they're not spending enough time together. And that's what EOS solves. So to do EOS, you're going to spend sessions together, and then usually it's a solid quarter a month, and then a 90-minute meeting a week. And that's enough to keep them on the same page, know what's going on with each other. And then what you find is after 90 days, things start to frazzle a bit. That's why we regroup in another quarterly session. All right, how do we do on the rocks we were working on? What are the most important things from here forward? Because things do shift. So I think leadership teams probably don't spend enough real focused on the business, and EOS solves for that.
It's kind of like having a New Year's resolution. You set it and then you're gung ho for a week, a month, and then you never go back and look at it again. And if you're doing that with your business, the same thing's going to happen. You're off track. So I like that you're saying at least every quarter, revisit what did we do right? What did we have challenges? Make sure we're still on task. Did those goals that you said we set, did they actually move the needle? And what do we have the next 90 days to move the needle? That's really good. All right. One last question. If you were going to write a book, what would you?
As you mentioned ChatGPT, you spend time with ChatGPT, it almost starts to know the ways. What's driven me is taking sort of small steps towards the bigger future. I think that's also why I'm attracted to EOS. It's about working. It is dissect what makes any person, the environment maybe you grew up in, people that influenced you. I think I would write a book about, hey, worked for me. That's all at the end of the day, that's ultimately all I can share. It's what my process. And if somebody says, hey, I can relate to that and that would help them, great. And it's like it's like sailing towards a destination. You're always off track, but you're always trying to tack towards the ultimate goal. I feel like that's probably been my life, right? Not really going in a straight line, but you keep navigating your way back to the goal and get eventually.
Yeah, I love the analogy of you're flying a plane and the wind takes it and you got to keep adjusting to get back. Otherwise, if you're flying California to New York, you could end up in Miami. So adjusting. But I think that would be helpful. You've got a lot of great experience and we just learned a lot here. I've got like a whole page of notes that I took during our interview. So really, really helpful. Tell people where
also thinking long term, right? You got to think about game. And it's kind of a short-term world these days, and like everything that's going on and gambling sites and social, it took me 30 years. It was really one business. We did evolve it over time. We brought in, but you got to think long-term. And if you can set the longer target, 10 plus out, you can accomplish a lot.
I think what's so smart about what you did too is you're really great at evolving and not just staying like you didn't become Blockbuster, right? You really evolved the business as technology changed, you changed and adjust and kept moving as it kept moving so you could grow your business by having those EOS systems, but you didn't just stay stagnant in one place. And that's really impressive. A lot of business owners don't do that.
Yeah, it's pretty much vital, especially energy, right? It just keeps moving. And just pension to customers steer you. You got to listen to what they're asking. They'll steer you towards that next thing that they want to see you do for them.
Tell people where they can reach out and find you.
Yeah, I would say the best place, hit me up on LinkedIn, just Erik Dodier, and happy to connect with people. People can message me. That's probably an easy way. If you also want to look up under the EOS website, I think it's EOS Worldwide, find an implementer, just type in my name, Erik Dodier. I'll come up there. And again, I have clients up here in the Northeast. However, if someone's looking EOS, I'm happy to talk to them wherever they are. I can steer them towards somebody. We have an awesome community of implementers. There's probably 300-400 in the US. And I always can steer them towards somebody that would be a good fit to work with them.
You're a man?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's implementers in Australia. They're growing in the UK and Canada. It's definitely a growing, starting to hit that curve point. It's becoming even more and more known, right? If you ask 10 business owners, I'd be surprised if out of 10, one at least knows about it, if not already using EOS.
Wow. So this is really a core business of yours. It's not just you, a one-man show. You've got other people under you that you've got that are teaching the same thing that you are. Is that correct?
Yeah. And EOS Worldwide, something I invented for sure. EOS Worldwide was started actually in the Detroit area by a gentleman, Gino Wickman. And it started with just him in about 2000, early 2000s. And he wrote a book called Traction, which people started to read and love the concepts. And he started training other people to implement EOS. And the magic was he really discovered that it wasn't him. It was the tools that he had developed. And so once he realized that, he felt, hey, I can have a bigger impact if I teach others how to implement these tools with more businesses. And then EOS Wide was born, and it started with implementers 10, 20, or sorry, probably 800 plus, 600 in the US. And yeah, it's an amazing organization. Core values of the people in it: first, do what you say, be humble. It really spoke to me. And so it's no surprise that I landed here post my business career. It just feels really good to community people that I'm now part of. So.
And it sounds like you just love what you're doing, so that, Erik, you're passionate about it and enjoy. You have no pressure. You're just helping business owners, which is awesome.
It is awesome. Yeah, thank you.
Sure. If you're looking to write a book, make sure you reach out to us at eliteonlinepublishing.com. We guarantee #1 bestseller. Plus, we can get you book awards and help get you media attention by getting podcast bookings and articles written about you. We'll see you next time. Have a great week, everybody. Bye-bye. Hey, are you looking to increase your revenue, build credibility, and elevate your brand? This podcast is brought to you by Elite Online Publishing, an innovative publishing and full-spectrum marketing company. They will publish and market your book to make it a #1 bestseller. Becoming an author is the best way to market your business. So contact them at eliteonlinepublishing.com today. All of their authors become #1 bestsellers.